This is my final project for FRLT 7130. My first topic is the rules of learning. I picked two rules from a text called Educational Psychologist. The first rule is that learning may be disadvantageous. Some examples of this are learning to start smoking to relieve stress. In the classroom, learning that disrespectful behavior towards a teacher will get you to leave the classroom so that you don't have to complete your work. Or attempting to learn too much at one time, which leads you to be overwhelmed and not retaining as much information. Some examples of how we can maybe correct this learning in special education are applying strategies to help with student confidence. You can do this by celebrating small successes in the classroom or incorporating activities that students are interested in so that they have more confidence in their ability to perform. You can also chunk lessons and assignments so that students are feeling more successful learning small things at one time. You can also teach coping strategies for increased self-control with students by helping them to reflect on their behavior, goal setting with them, or incorporating break cards, kind of like calm down cards. Our second rule of learning is that learning is interactional. Some examples of this are learning a language. You interact with others to learn language. You can learn coping strategies from your parents. Those can be positive, those can be negative, but you learn them through interacting. Learning to read or learning to play baseball. You're interacting with the game itself as well as interacting with coaches who are teaching you to play. In special education, we can really dive deep on this rule of learning by incorporating peer-based learning, where you have your direct instruction, and then for your guided practice, you're kind of grouping students together so they're learning off of each other. You can also use manipulatives that incorporate a student interacting with physical objects to count. You can display positive emotional reactions. You can role play in early ages, for example, this photo I have up here, or incorporating experiments into the classroom. Moving on to the topic of behaviorism. First, we're talking about reinforcement in special education. So reinforcement is a stimulus or event that increases the likelihood of a desired behavior occurring again in the future. There are two ways to implement reinforcement. There's a positive way and a negative way. Positive reinforcement is, for example, imagine a teacher trying to encourage students to participate more in classroom discussions. When the students participate in the classroom discussions, the teacher may give positive praise for participating or give them a reward such as candy. Over time, they'll associate the participation with a positive stimulus. It is negative reinforcement, and while people might think that that means you are punishing, that is just not the case. So for example, a teacher says that if a student finishes their work quietly, they will have no homework. This is negative reinforcement because you're taking away an undesired stimulus to increase their likelihood of giving you that desired behavior. Second, under the topic of behaviorism, is fixed reinforcement schedules, which is just really providing that reinforcement that we just talked about in intervals. So our first is ratio reinforcement schedules. We use a lot of these in special education, which is just, it's providing reinforcement after a specific number of responses. So for example, if a teacher and a student have an agreement that the student may receive a piece of candy after completing 5 questions correctly with no assistance, this encourages the student to dig deep on the topic and strive to get those 5 questions correct. You have your interval reinforcement schedule that is basically the same thing, but instead of after a specific number of responses, it's after a specific amount of time. So for example, if teachers are giving free time on Friday, like a fun Friday, if a student's work is complete for the week, that encourages the student to complete all of their work for the week. That way they receive that reinforcement at the end of the week. This topic is human cognition. So the first thing we'll be talking about is retrieval-based learning. Retrieval-based learning is actively recalling information to strengthen your memory and understanding of the topic or skill. In special education, a teacher might use multiplication flashcards periodically to help students recall those multiplication facts. In my classroom, I have students every day when they come in complete a multiplication fact booklet where they are actively recalling those multiplication facts daily so that when they get to a test or an assignment where they need to use those facts quickly, it helps them to recall it quicker. Next topic is chunking. It's a memory strategy in which a learner chunks information to store it more efficiently in the brain. For example, I put breaking down multi-digit multiplication. So if your end goal is to have students complete 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication, you can chunk that information in lessons. So instead of having students straight out complete the 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication. You can start with students multiplying a 2-digit number by a 1-digit number, kind of like this that I'm highlighting. That way, when they go to complete the 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication, they have a prior understanding of multiplying 1-digit by 2-digit and how it works and the steps. Our next big topic is the motivation to learn, which we know students need a lot of in special education. So our first thing is personal versus situational interest. A personal interest is an interest that a student may have individually. Lessons are more engaging when you tie student interest into the lesson. So a student may be interested in basketball. In my classroom, I have a small basketball hoop. I may craft a review lesson or even just a direct lesson where we incorporate using that basketball hoop to allow the student to be more interested in learning the topic. Next is situational interest, where it's kind of a temporary interest that a student has. So for example, if a student comes into a classroom every day in science and is doing notes, the student may be more interested when they come into the classroom and you're doing a science experiment. They have something new to look forward to. They're doing something hands-on. So it's sparking their interest in the moment. Next on our motivation to learn is the expectancy value theory, which is just a framework that explains learner motivation. So your first topic is expectancy for success, which is a student just believing that they may or may not succeed. So for example, if a student is confident, they'll say, I'm confident, I'll pass this math exam, I want to try. Or if they're not, they're say, I don't even want to try on this math exam because I know I'm going to fail. If they expect to succeed, they have more motivation to try. Next is how important a skill or learning is to a student. So if them seeing importance or not seeing importance and value in learning the skills. So a student may say, I want to learn this anatomy because I want to be a doctor in the future. So they're seeing importance in their learning. While another student in the same class may say, why should I need to know anatomy? I want to be a mechanic when I'm older. The student sees that importance in their learning and how they can use it in their future. They are more motivated to learn the skill. This is the utility in the learning. So are they seeing a use for the skill in their future? The student might say, I hate writing essays, but I need to practice for the college essays that are coming up. So they're motivated to learn and practice this skill. While a student who doesn't plan on going to college may say, I hate writing essays and I don't see the use for this since I'm not going to college. Next is a student's interest in the lesson. So finding interest in the lesson or the topic. We just talked about interest actually. So a student may say, I want to complete this lesson because I like experiments. That's that situational interest we see coming through. Another student may say, I hate reading and I have no interest in doing it. It is the cost of learning. So a student seeing if a task is worth the time and effort that they're going to put into it. So a student may say, I don't want to study and it's a waste of my time outside of school. The student sees that these topics or lessons are worth their time and effort to complete, they're motivated to complete the assignment. The topic to discuss is the social cognitive theory. So our first topic is modeling in a lesson. So modeling is a form of learning that occurs by observing and imitating others. In special education, a teacher might demonstrate how to ask for help politely, and from watching the teacher demonstrate this skill, the students have learned it. Next is vicarious learning. I memorized this by hearing the term, you're living vicariously through somebody, because it's a form of learning that occurs by observing others and their experiences that they have. So in the classroom, the students may learn those positive behaviors when they're seeing others being rewarded for doing something positive. A student may be discouraged from bad behavior when they're seeing others being punished for it. Students having bad behavior in a classroom and they're not being punished from it, the other students are not learning the consequences. Student is having very positive behaviors in the classroom and they're not really being rewarded for it or spoken to for it. The students don't seem to want to perform those positive behaviors nearly as much. Thank you for watching my final project.